Hello fellow modelers. I'm today I started this a couple days ago. I've got probably 2 or 3 hours into the build so far. And this is a Lindberg Dodge L700 tractor kit that I'm building. I bought it as the tanker trailer and tractor kit. And I used the tank for something else, for an oil tank truck. And this I'm going to build as a tractor, I think, for right now, to go with my auto carrier. I just wanted to do this brief update and show you where I'm at. I'm up to, where's the instruction sheet? I'm up to step 4, the assembly of the chassis. And one thing I'm noticing with this kit so far is that it is kind of a challenge, because they don't really show you where the parts go. They have an isometric view. For example, the fifth wheel mount, I guess that's called. Oop, drop it on the floor. It's going to be harder to assemble. It shows that it goes somewhere in here between the spring shackles, but it doesn't say where. Another example is the spring mounts. These didn't really line up with the holes on either side. This one lined up a little bit better. And the other thing that was kind of funky was the pivot mounts for the cab. You can't see it, but this little piece right here on the diagram is hit on the top of the frame rail. And if you put it on the top of the frame rail, then the pivot is going to be down. And it clearly shows in the diagram that it's supposed to be up. So yeah, this is turning out to be a little more of a annoyance / challenge than I expected it to be. But so it goes. I'll bring you along when I get some more work done. Right now, I'm going to finish assembling the chassis, and then I will go into the paint booth, and I will paint the engine and the chassis assembly. Okay, here we are so far. I've got the hubs and the rims ready for paint. I think what I'm going to do is paint the rims silver, and I'm not sure about the hubs yet. They may just be black, I'm not sure. Maybe they'll be blue. Not 100% sure what I'm going to do for the body color as well. That may be, I don't know, it might be blue, might be two-tone, I'm not sure yet. Here's the chassis, all ready for black paint. And by looking at the photographs and the diagrams in further sections, it looks like the fifth wheel is mounted almost centered over the axle, so that's where I mounted it. I was going to mention a couple of things. Mounting the front axle. Okay, had some issues with the front axle. You can see the two wheels are not in alignment. So what you have to do is you have to be really careful gluing these in place so that they will turn and pivot. Come on. It doesn't want to pivot now. It will a little bit. Okay. So up here, I don't know if this is going to come out. Get a pointer here. Where's my pointer? Guess I'll use a file. So what I did was I slid the tie rod over the suspension pin. What's that called? Right here. And I slid it over there. And in order to do that, you have to open up the hole quite a bit to get the pin down into it. And then once I got it in all the way, it's really hard to tell, but I took a soldering iron and I melted it just a little bit to hold it in place on each side. Boy, I don't think the light's very good here. Can you see it from over there? I'll move the motor, the engine. So right here, I soldered it, put a little bit of it just melted the very tip of it. And then up here you have to glue, there's a ring right there, that's a separate piece, and you have to glue that to the knuckle. Don't glue it to the front axle or to the pin. That will allow it to pivot. And you noticed it didn't pivot very well for me, but it does a little bit. Okay. The other problem I had mounting the front springs is that, again, as I mentioned earlier, they don't give you any guidance as to where is this supposed to go. And what I did was, there's a little bit of an inset with that spring mount and a little bit of an inset with this spring mount. This one's a little bit less than that one. I may have to spread that just a little bit, but you want them to be equal on each side. And the other thing I noticed was, does it show up? One of these springs is bent. I think it's this one here. In packaging, yeah, it's bent right there. It's that one. So, and looking at this carefully from a distance, the front axle looks like this end is further forward than this end is backwards. So I'm going to have to do a little tweaking here before I head to the paint shop. But that's okay. The paint is still, the glue is still a little bit wet. Not completely dry on the axles anyways. A little bit more tweaking. Well, welcome back for a quick update here. As you can see, things are moving along. We have some black things and some silver things. I've decided to paint the engine all black for now. I will come back and probably paint it orange or red, whatever the appropriate color is for Dodge trucks. I just wanted to give a heads up on a couple of items. First of all, as I mentioned, the instructions a little bit vague on some aspects. I guess that's the brake drum. It's not really clear. They show in the diagram. Again, it's just an isometric drawing. I think you are supposed to glue the brake drum to the hub, to the back of the hub, because I think what's going to happen, if this is assembled correctly, is you will, am I on camera? Insert the drum onto the axle like that, and notice the axle is about twice as long as it needs to be, and then you'll put a cap over it like that, put that little cap over the top of it. So I'm going to have to trim back the axle and then fit the cap on top of it. So there's that part, and you can see I've done one but not the other. So now I've got to glue this one in place. So after I've painted the inside of it, I discovered you don't need to paint the inside of it because it's never going to show. The other thing I discovered, you really can't really tell, but you need to paint the, what's that, the center portion of the rims, I guess. You need to paint that in there, otherwise that's going to show. Put it on camera. Down in there it's going to show, so it's painted black now. And you also have to paint the other side of the rear drums, I guess, because otherwise that would show red inside there. Get that little piece of red plastic off there. So now I think the wheels, tires, hubs, all painted and assembled, except for this one drum right here in my hand that I'm gluing off camera, sorry. So there's my rear wheels and tires, front wheels and tires. I'm just going to have to check the axle lengths. Did I check the rear axle? See how those are? Maybe they're too long as well. So what's going to happen with those is we'll have these little pins here. This little pin here goes down into the axle. Oh, don't know if I mentioned colors. This is painted with float wheel paint, which is no longer business. It's a weathered black. Okay, the fan shaft is just a little bit too long. I'm going to have to remove the fan. Can't see that, can you? Just pile of black and shadow. But anyways, down in there, the fan shaft is a little bit too long. I can't get it down in back of the radiator. Okay, I'm back again to the Dodge L700. Moved along quite a ways since last time. The cab is all painted, and you can see I've got the lettering highlighted with some silver pen, marking pen, and it's ready now to have the windows installed. So that's going to be my next step. And once the windows are in, then I'll put the dashboard in. You see I've got the steering wheel and the steering shaft all set. So those are the next steps. The doors are all built. They're not installed yet. I'm thinking about doing some lettering on the doors. So windows, lettering. Now as for the chassis itself, few things I ran into with this. First of all, the instructions for this Lindberg L700 are vague at best. Here's the sheet here. It has lovely isometric drawings which don't tell you anything. It tells you part numbers, and the part numbers are not on the sprues, but they are on this guide on the back. But it doesn't tell you order of assembly. And it also doesn't show you where pieces and parts go very well. And a prime example was the battery box here. I had no idea where it went. It just shows it going somewhere. I thought in the frame. I thought it was going to go down in here. But it doesn't fit in either location. And I found one picture. I don't know. I don't remember if it was a model or if it was an actual prototype truck. But I saw one picture where the battery box was located on the driver's side, which kind of makes sense because you have the air tank over here. So you could have some heavier, some more weight on the driver's side to offset. Other pieces are pretty clear. They have holes, mounting holes for them. The other thing I had some trouble with was the figuring out how to get the exhaust in. Where does that go? They just show the two pipes going into the muffler. They don't show how they go in per se, and then it doesn't really show how far up or back it goes. So what I had to do was kind of get the engine all set in place and glued in, and then move the exhaust pipes a little bit this way and that, and I actually had to do some bending with a soldering iron or soldering gun and heat up the plastic on the uphill side that you can't see, and bend it a little bit. Another thing I ran into while I have this upside down was the steerable wheels. I had to glue this side. I think it was broke, the pivot pin. So that side is stationary and the whole thing is stationary. Another thing I noticed about this, I don't know if it shows in the camera, I don't know why, but the axle is off camber a little bit. It looks like everything is in the right place. I don't know if, you know, one or both of the leaf springs are off, too far back, too far forward, whatever. But anyways, it is what it is now. Roll it back over. I had to do some filing to the, I guess I'll flip it over again. I had to do some filing to the bottom of the transmission to get this transmission cradle here. The transmission has to mount down into the bottom of the cradle, and I can't remember what I had to do, but I had to do some filing to get, you have the forward engine cradle up here too, and so it has to get between the oil tank, to get between the oil pan and the transmission back here. So you have to get that distance right there, has to be exactly right or it won't fit in. And so I had to do some filing in there, and you can kind of see the orange right there, or is that the red plastic? I also had to cut down one end of the other, I think it was this end I cut down, of the drive shaft to get that to fit in there too. So those have been the trouble points. At this point on the chassis, notice up here the cab cushions. Is that showing up all right? The cab cushions, I filed them down a little bit. A lot of people have complained online about this model, not about how the cab tilts forward. And at this point, I could say two things I've noticed. First of all, you can file those cab mounts down a little bit, and that'll bring the back of the cab down. The other thing is, if you look at, I don't know if I can show this, if you look at the chassis itself, the rear axle is probably a scale 3 or 4 inches higher than the front axle. So this right here is 3 or 4 inches scale higher than up here. So the whole thing is tilted forward. It's going to be hard to get this level to take out, 3 or 4 inches scale. Although that's, that I probably took an inch or two off right there so far. And I'm going to leave it like that for now and see how it goes. When I get the cab complete and in place, it'll be a lot easier to see whether it's mostly level or level. Actually, if you look at the picture in this diagram, and that's probably the one on the cover of the box, it almost looks like the cab is pointing up a little bit. And if you look at the rear axle, interesting, just notice that it doesn't really look higher in the back. I'll have to look at the box cover. Okay, so that's where we're at. Another thing I had a little question about was where does the air lines, I don't know what you call that, the pogo stick, I think they call that. Where does that mount? It wasn't really clear from the instructions, the isometric drawings. And I found somebody else online did a construction video on this truck, and as far as the pivots for the cab, he said glue these two triangular pieces in place first, and then what you do is you just squeeze the frame at the front just a little bit, and you can pull the pin enough to get it out. So that was a great tip. Fellow modelers, here is my Dodge L700, all completed. A little bit of weathering. I made the air hoses from some little wire I had upstairs for model railroading. And the cab tilts up nicely. Show off the engine. So I think all in all it came out pretty good. I think I mentioned the fact that I filed down those little what do they call them, cab cushions, right there. And that brought the cab down, the back of the cab down a little bit. It maybe is tilted still a little bit forward. So I could file a little bit more off, but I'm happy with the way it is. The doors do work, but I am not going to open the doors. I haven't tried to open them since I put 2 quarts of pledge on them, on the cab, and then I did a little bit of touch-up too. So I'm not sure that they're going to want to open very well. But they do work. Take my word for it. So there we go. Most of the weathering I did was just in the form of the Tester's dull coat, and I put some what is that? That's just some brown acrylic paint that I thinned down a lot, and brushed it on here and there, highlight some of the details on the underframe. So I have it lettered for Jack's Auto Transport. Why? Well, because I have the AMT auto carrier here to go with it. I'm going to have to back up the camera a bit to get it all in. So, what do they call that? The AMT auto haul-away trailer, that's it. So I think since I came up with a name for the tractor, I'm going to have to come up with a name to put here now. And I didn't put the license plate on the back of the trailer either. I think that goes pretty well. I still have to assemble the Ford C600 cabover. It's mostly completed upstairs. That came with this haul-away trailer. This is an original 70s haul-away trailer kit that I bought on eBay. That was a I guess you'd call it a basket case or a junkyard case or whatever, glue bomb. It was partially assembled, pretty messed up. Ditto on the cab. So it's still to be assembled, but it's pretty well along. Thank you for viewing my video on the Dodge L700. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a Lindberg model, by the way. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please leave a thumbs up down below. And if you have questions or comments, suggestions, you can leave them down below too. And if you want to see other videos like this, check out my other videos, subscribe. I'll release more as time and my modeling allow. Take care and have fun with your modeling.